Before we begin, just a quick note from our team. We put a ton of time and passion into crafting thrilling sci-fi stories like this one. If you enjoy what you're about to read, please hit that like button and leave a comment about your favorite moment. It keeps us going and lets us know you want more. Now, on to the story. The classroom was enormous, designed not for a single species but for dozens. Chitinous seats, floating perches, pressure-sensitive platforms, all arranged in tiers inside a low-orbit academy station above the storm-scarred moon of Arvaxis. The Galactic Military Institute of Strategic Doctrine, or GMISD as its cadets called it, was where the galaxy's brightest came to learn one thing: how to win wars. Today's lecture was titled Category 8 Threat Mitigation, Human Neutralization Protocols. Dr. Marcus Webb sat quietly in the back, unassuming. No military insignia, just a civilian xenobiology badge and a tablet on his lap, stylus tapping. No one noticed him. Not really. Not yet. He watched as Professor Vex Thul, a 10-foot-tall Icarian with translucent scales and a triple-lobed brain, raised his four-fingered hands and addressed the class. Humans, he said with disdain, are resilient vermin. Adaptable, yes, but primitive. With sufficient psychological manipulation and targeted environment destabilization, their resistance collapses quickly. He gestured to the display. A series of bullet points appeared under the heading: How to kill a human. Starve them of oxygen. Low-pressure environments disrupt their biology. Flood with EM fields. Disrupt neural cohesion. Remove social bonds. Humans crumble in isolation. Disinformation campaigns. Confuse their tribal logic, apply steady, sustained fear, erode emotional stability. Marcus raised an eyebrow and kept writing. Around him, 300 alien cadets nodded, their various faces blank or amused. No one questioned the data. Why would they? The humans had only joined the galactic stage 2 decades ago, late arrivals to an old and brutal game. And yet, every major conflict involving humans had ended the same way, with the enemy losing far more than they'd expected. Still, the professor pressed on. They possess no exoskeleton, weak night vision, a volatile emotional spectrum. Their musculature is inefficient compared to Solari, or even the low-caste Urthar. All we must do, Vex Thul said smugly, is press the right pressure points. A cadet raised her claw. Professor, the Terran incident on Kravix. Over 900 Solari shock troopers perished within the first 12 hours. The report mentioned asymmetric escalation. Vex Thul waved a tendril dismissively. An outlier. Human unpredictability is a statistical anomaly. They improvise. That is all. Their success is not strategy. It is chaos weaponized. Marcus smirked. He shifted in his seat and whispered under his breath, "You're not entirely wrong." The lesson continued for 2 hours. Charts, case studies, animated reenactments where cartoon humans screamed and ran or collapsed in terror. The aliens laughed. Some took notes. One even made a joke about keeping a hairless pet if they captured one alive. Marcus watched. He waited. Then when the final slide faded and the lights returned, Professor Vex Thul said, "That concludes our lecture on the elimination of Homo sapiens. Questions?" Marcus stood up. He didn't raise his hand. He just walked, slowly, down the steps of the auditorium. The room hushed. Even Vex Thul tilted his head. "Civilian consultant? This section is closed to non-military observers." Marcus raised a finger, calm, precise. "I appreciate the overview," he said, "but I'd like to offer a few corrections." Professor Vex Thul's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" Marcus smiled, but not kindly. "Dr. Marcus Webb, Terran Defense Command, Psychological Warfare Division." Silence. Then, he tapped his wrist. The light snapped red. The walls locked down. Dozens of metallic panels opened in the ceiling as hidden surveillance drones activated. The aliens froze. Marcus stepped into the center of the room, slowly rolling up his sleeves. You just spent 2 hours explaining how to kill my species, he said. And now, I'm going to show you why that was a mistake. The classroom was silent. No one moved. No one breathed. At least not in the way Marcus understood the word. Some vibrated through gills. Others shifted internal gas chambers. But the instinct was universal across species. Predator recognition. And right now every cadet in the room was looking at Marcus Webb like a creature they thought extinct, suddenly very much alive. He stood in the center of the amphitheater, surrounded by species who had all just been taught the proper way to end his life. He tapped his wrist device again. "Begin playback," he said. A hologram flickered to life beside him. Not a simulation, not a dramatization, a classified combat recording, one only the Terran Defense Command had access to. The footage showed a barren moon battlefield. A group of Solarian forcers, the same species that had laughed in this classroom, were advancing through craggy terrain. Suddenly, a human emerged from behind cover, alone, bleeding, weaponless. And within 90 seconds, 9 Solari were down, 2 dead, the rest disabled. The room was deathly still. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Incorrect assumption 1, he said, turning to the stunned professor. "You claimed human musculature was inefficient. You failed to consider anaerobic burst thresholds. Our muscle fibers operate at 40% under normal conditions. Under stress, we exceed that. Violently." He tapped again. Playback 2. A starship interior. A human infiltrator crawling through a vent. Barehanded. Temperature, 20 degrees. Air composition, argon heavy, toxic to humans. The infiltrator wrapped his mouth with cloth, injected a stim pack, and kept going. Marcus turned slowly to the class. "Incorrect assumption 2. You said humans collapse in low-pressure environments. We don't. We adapt. You flood the environment with EM pulses. We kill our implants, go analog, and rewire a plasma coil into a railgun." He let the words hang. Then he smiled. "Should I continue?" A Solari cadet muttered something in his native tongue. Marcus caught it. The translation was crude but telling. "We were supposed to learn how to kill them. Why does it feel like he's hunting us?" Professor Vexthul finally broke the silence. "You're here to intimidate, I presume? A propaganda demonstration?" Marcus looked at him, measured, cool. "No, I'm here to correct your mistakes," he said. "You're not just misinformed, you're operating under dangerous illusions." He looked around at the students. "You think the coalition hasn't tried? You think you're the first group to dissect a species and think, now we know how to end them?" He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Another hologram flickered to life. Orbital debris fields, shattered ships, an entire coalition task force, wiped out over a Terran-controlled asteroid. Those were the ones who thought we were weak. He stepped forward again. "You mistake humanity's greatest advantage for a weakness. You think our emotions make us vulnerable, that our lack of claws, of scales, of chemical-based communication means we're lesser." Marcus leaned in, voice dropping. "But you forgot one thing. We're the only species in the known galaxy that evolved not just to survive predators, but to become them." The lights in the room dimmed again, only this time, not by design. A siren echoed faintly in the distance. The professor turned sharply. What is that?" Marcus looked up at the ceiling. Calm. "It means your simulation environment just got overridden." The drones in the room turned inward, focusing their lenses on the cadets. "Lesson 2 begins now," Marcus said. "I'm the test. Panic doesn't start with screaming. It starts with silence." A room full of cadets, elite warriors in training from 12 different worlds, suddenly had no idea if what was happening was still part of the lecture, or if they were about to die. The sirens outside continued. The ceiling flickered. Panels across the walls began to shift, unfold and open, revealing combat drones, the kind used in live simulations. But their blue lights turned red. That wasn't part of the curriculum. Professor Vexethul was already communicating through his neural implant. Command, this is Lecture Hall 4. Confirm code. Are we under breach? I repeat. Is this... A cold, synthetic voice interrupted him. This simulation override was authorized by Terran Defense Command. Priority level, Black. Human Warfare Doctrine, Lesson 1 initiated. Adaptation under fire. One of the Earthar cadets stood up and barked, "This is illegal. You cannot conduct lethal simulations without clearance." Marcus turned his head toward him, completely calm. Incorrect. Section 47 Gamma of the Galactic Military Cooperation Accords. Interspecies tactical doctrine may be overridden during threat-level training if the participating species presents a real-time security failure. He paused. In other words, when a whole room full of future officers thinks they know how to exterminate my species, that's considered a training emergency. A loud thud echoed through the hall. The entrances sealed. Another hologram came online, this time a full map of the room. Each cadet was assigned a unique marker. The cadets stood frozen. Then a tentacled Grothian finally moved. He hissed to his squad, "Spread out. Coordinate phalanx. Force him into open space." 6 others moved with him. Another group, Reptilian Zarnak, began issuing orders in clicks and hisses. The room divided quickly into factions. All of them had one goal: take down Marcus Webb. He stood in the middle of it all, completely still, watching, waiting. 08. The Grothians struck first. One leapt from above, a stun net in hand. Marcus sidestepped it without blinking, caught the net mid-air, and with a flick of his wrist redirected it, straight into another cadet's face. Screams echoed. Another tried to flank him, got a boot to the thorax and crashed into a wall. The third approached with claws extended. Marcus ducked low, swept his legs, then struck him twice in the throat with brutal efficiency. He didn't fight like they expected. He wasn't flashy. He didn't show off. He fought like someone who knew exactly how every one of them had been trained, because he'd read their files before the lesson started. Chaos erupted. Dozens of species charged from all angles. The air filled with flashes of light, sonic stun grenades, physical strikes. But Marcus was gone. He was moving through them like water through cracks. Calm. Deadly. In the center of the map, his signal vanished. "How?" one cadet shrieked. He's not cloaked. He doesn't have tech." Professor Vexethul stared at the screen. His eyes twitched. He knew what this meant. No tech, just tactics. He's using your own training. Against you. Marcus reappeared behind the back line. 3 Grothians fell before anyone even saw him. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to teach. And the lesson was simple. You don't know what you're dealing with. By the time the timer hit 03:00, half the class was dead. The rest were cornered, panting in a defensive ring, desperate and wide-eyed. Marcus stood calmly outside their perimeter. He adjusted the collar of his jacket. No weapons, no armor. Just a human man in a room full of alien warriors winning. He spoke again, not out of anger, but instruction. Here's the real first rule of fighting humans. If we're in the room, and we're still standing, you've already lost. The combat simulation ended with a chime. Simulation complete. Fatality rate 78%. Human operative survived with no recorded injuries. Assessment: tactical failure. Psychological destabilization, high. Silence returned, but not the stunned kind from before. This was simmering silence. The kind that followed humiliation so complete it rewrote identity. Dozens of cadets stood frozen, virtual bruises flashing in orange warning holograms over their bodies. Their pride was wounded far more deeply than their simulated flesh. Professor Vexethul's voice was shaky. You were briefed. You had our files. You said you would observe. What you did? I taught them. Marcus cut in sharply. You don't train soldiers with lies. You don't prepare warriors with fiction. He paced slowly in front of the exhausted class. You told them humans lack night vision, yet 3 of them died in simulated darkness. You told them humans fold under fear. Then why did none of you dare charge me after the first kill? He stopped in front of a cadet, a young Tixari, trembling despite his exoskeletal armor. You were told I was fragile. He leaned forward, voice low. I broke your arm in 5 seconds, with one hand. Simulated or not, the reflex was real. The Tixari looked away, ashamed. Marcus stepped back and looked at the professor. You didn't teach a survival course. You taught a fantasy. Professor Vexthul was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was brittle like cracking ice. You humans, you're unpredictable. You don't obey any known threat response models. You have no symmetry, no logic. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And yet here we are, still standing, still breathing. He looked out over the cadets again. Let me correct the third and most dangerous lie you've been told, that you understand us. He activated a new hologram. This one was not from a battlefield, it was from a Terran classroom, children learning chemistry, engineering, literature. Then the images shifted. Rescue operations during fires, volunteers running into hurricanes, a lone medic operating during a bombing. These are humans, not because we are strong, not because we are clever, but because when everything is falling apart, we run toward the fire. A Zarnak cadet, pride still raw, snapped. And yet you die in the millions in every war. You burn your own planets. You tear yourselves apart. Marcus turned toward him, gaze cold. Yes, we do. He stepped forward slowly. But here's what you've never understood, and what none of your lectures can teach. We get back up. Every time. You destroy a city. We rebuild it twice as tall. You kill a battalion. We train 3 more. You wipe out our species. We'll come back in your nightmares. He pointed to his own chest. We don't win because we're the strongest species. We win because you never figured out how to break our will. The room was dead quiet. Professor Vexthul sat down, no longer lecturing, just listening. And then from somewhere near the back of the room, a cadet raised a trembling hand. What would you have us do, human? Marcus smiled, just slightly. First, he said, stop teaching children how to kill us. He paused. Second, he walked to the center of the room and turned in a slow circle, locking eyes with each cadet. Start learning how to stand with us before you have to fight us again. It had been 24 hours since the simulation, and still, no one could look Marcus Webb in the eyes. Not the cadets, not the instructors, not even the war-hardened adjutants who had reviewed the footage. The aftermath had spread like plasma fire across the Galactic Military Academy's upper ranks. Files were being reopened, protocols re-examined, entire lesson plans deleted. But while the faculty argued in back rooms about containment and damage control, one person had decided to act. Her name was Admiral Sareth Kareen, commander of Coalition Battle Group Tau, a veteran of 7 interstellar conflicts, a strategist so feared that her name appeared in some Terran military classrooms under the topic, Respect Your Enemy. She was also the one who summoned Marcus, and he arrived, precisely on time. The Admiral's war room was cold and unlit, its curved observation deck overlooking the central city spires of Ralcor Station. Marcus entered without ceremony. No salute, no fear. Admiral. She gestured to the seat across from her. Dr. Webb, I've reviewed the simulation, all of it. Then you know why I did it. I do, she said. And I also know you violated 3 interstellar military protocols, humiliated a faculty chair, and traumatized a generation of elite officers. He met her gaze. They needed trauma. Better a simulation than a real war. Kareen was silent. Then, after a long pause, I agree. That was not the response Marcus had expected. The Admiral stood and walked to the hollow panel at the far wall. With a flick of her clawed fingers, she brought up a projection. It was a map, but not of the Academy or a battlefield. It was a territorial threat grid, one stretching far beyond Coalition borders, past Terran space, into unknown black sectors. Marcus frowned. "What am I looking at?" "A new problem," she said. "One even your people don't know about yet." She pointed at a pulsing red dot. "A species we believed extinct. Something ancient. Something we've both feared for centuries, on opposite sides of the border." The hologram flickered and a grainy image appeared. Not a ship, not a fleet. A creature. Towering, insectoid, coated in metallic armor that shimmered with bioluminescent runes. "Contact Protocol Alpha Red," she said. "No diplomacy, no retreat, only eradication." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "And why are you showing this to me?" "Because," Kareen said, turning to face him fully now, "if this threat moves, your species may be the only one capable of surviving it." She walked back toward him slowly, her voice steady but low. "You saw what we taught here. A joke. Arrogance layered in ignorance. But you showed them something real. You reminded us of the truth. Humans are not weak. You're the one species we never truly understood. Because you kept changing. You evolved in every war. You absorbed every loss. And now, you terrify us." Marcus said nothing. The Admiral stepped closer. "That's why I need you to train them." That caught him off guard. "Train them?" "Yes. Take the top 1% of every Coalition academy. Rewrite their education. From the ground up. No more lies. No more assumptions." Marcus raised a brow. "And you think your people will accept that? That they'll let a human tell them how wrong they've been?" Kareen's expression hardened. "They won't. Not at first." She handed him a datapad. "But they will when they see your first team survive what's coming." Marcus looked down at the pad. On it were names, species, backgrounds, and a code name. Project Bastion, a hybrid tactical unit. Mixed species. Designed to operate under human command structures in worst-case scenarios. His expression was unreadable. For a moment he said nothing. Then softly, "This isn't a class." Kareen smiled grimly. "No, Dr. Webb. This is war school. For the galaxy's last defense. Last defense." The training field wasn't located on any official map. It had no name, no flag, and no political alignment. Just a call sign, Bastion 0. A repurposed moon station orbiting a dead planet, cold, silent, and surrounded by nothing but black. And that's exactly how Marcus Webb wanted it. This wasn't a classroom. This was where the galaxy's most dangerous delusions were going to die, and something new was going to be born. The shuttle touched down with a hiss. Inside were 12 of the most elite cadets from across Coalition space. Each had graduated in the top percentile of their academy. Each had been trained in species-specific tactics, weaponry, psychology, and field command. But none of them were ready for this. The first to step out was Korak, a towering, obsidian-scaled Zarnak with ceremonial armor. He sniffed the air in disgust. No reception. No guidance AI. Primitive. Next came Isaven, a telepathic Neuralian, her head already glowing faintly with scanning energy. "There's a psi field jamming our passive reads. We're being blinded." Others followed. Grothian twins, a Earthar shock trooper, a Tixari shadow marshal, and then, last, Lieutenant Leon Tran, the only other human. She nodded silently at Marcus as she approached. "All aboard? They're nervous." "Good," Marcus replied. "Fear is honest. Everything else is habit." Once inside the compound, the cadets were shown to a central chamber. The room was unadorned, cold metal, no furniture, no ceremony. Marcus entered wearing standard field fatigues, no medals, no rank display. "You're here because you're the best," he began, his voice level. You're also here because that's not good enough anymore. The group exchanged wary glances. He tapped a panel. A hologram blinked to life, showing the alien threat Admiral Kareen had revealed days earlier. The creature, tall and inhuman, its body rippling with armor that defied known science. This is what's coming. The room tensed. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it wants. But we know what it does. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't hesitate. It devours. Why us? Korak demanded. Why form a hybrid unit at all? We don't need Terran methods. Our forces are predictable, Marcus cut in. That's what they're counting on. He circled the room slowly. Your enemies know your tactics, your formations, your chain of command. They've adapted to every known doctrine in the Coalition's files. He stopped. But they've never fought a team trained under our rules. He looked to Leon, who stood at the side of the room. Tell them what you know. She stepped forward and opened a secondary hologram. Footage of human special forces across centuries. Urban warfare, jungle raids, spaceborne zero-G ops, psychological infiltration. Not one of them fought the same way. You think we're chaotic, she said softly. But it's not chaos. It's adaptation, fluid strategy, action without permission, initiative over obedience. Marcus stepped forward again. In this unit, you don't follow orders. You follow objectives. You think. You react. You survive. Another cadet, a Grothian, hissed. Then who leads? Marcus smiled slightly. You all do? Gasps echoed through the chamber. This unit doesn't operate on hierarchy, he said. It operates on trust. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good. Because the enemy we're preparing for doesn't care how shiny your badge is. It only cares whether you can kill it before it kills you. He tapped the wall. Doors hissed open behind the group. 12 training pods activated, each with simulations tailored to the cadets' own weaknesses, scenarios they had never seen, nightmares drawn from their psych profiles. First lesson begins now. A pause. Survive. The cadets hesitated. Some looked at each other unsure. Then Leon spoke. One quiet word. Go. And just like that, the future of the galaxy's last hope, Project Bastion, began. The air inside Bastion Zero was thick with tension. 12 elite cadets, handpicked from across the Coalition, now faced their toughest test. Not from an external enemy, but from the distrust simmering within their ranks. The first simulation pods shut down one by one, blinking from red to green. Most had survived. Some had barely scratched their limits, but one pod remained active. Issa Ven's telepathic cries echoed down the hallways, her glowing eyes wide with panic. Get her out of there, Marcus ordered, running toward the pod's location. As they opened the pod, Issa Ven collapsed into Marcus's arms, breath ragged. What happened? Lieutenant Leon asked, kneeling beside her. Issa Ven's voice trembled. It was a trap, a mental assault. I wasn't prepared. Marcus's expression hardened. This is exactly why we're here. He turned to the group. Alone, you fall. Together, you might live. The team gathered in the central hall, wounds fresh but spirits fractured. Korak paced angrily. We're not children to hold hands. Leon's voice was calm but firm. We're not here to be friends. We're here to survive. And survival demands trust. Grothian twins exchanged glances. It's not just trust, one said. It's understanding. Our cultures clash. Marcus stepped forward. You're right. He pulled up a hollow projection of battlefields past. Humans, Zarnak, Neuralians fighting side by side. Each species thinks differently, but when you learn to listen, to adapt, your strength multiplies. He looked each cadet in the eye. We're not just fighting aliens. We're fighting ignorance. A long silence followed. Then, one by one, the cadets began sharing stories. Losses suffered, victories earned, fears faced. For the first time, they stopped seeing each other as other. Suddenly, the alarms blared. A new threat alert. The enemy they had trained for was closing in. Marcus clenched his fists. The real test begins now. The real test. The warning klaxons echoed through Bastion Zero's cold corridors, bouncing off metal and silence alike. The hybrid team, now uneasy allies, snapped into action. They had trained for this moment, or so they thought. The holomaps flickered on the walls, revealing the incoming threat. A squadron of sleek insectoid warships cutting through space at impossible speeds, closing the distance to the station. "This is no simulation," Marcus said, voice sharp. "They're here." Korak grunted. "The swarm approaches." Isaven's eyes glowed as she sent out a wave of telepathic signals, probing the enemy's mental patterns. "Their minds are hive-linked, coordination beyond anything we've seen." "Good," Marcus replied. "Then we'll fight as one." The team scrambled to their battle stations, but there was no time for ritual. The first strike came moments later. Explosions rippled across the station's exterior. The hull shuddered under relentless plasma fire. Emergency lights cast frantic shadows in the corridors. Lieutenant Leon barked orders, voice steady despite the chaos. "Divert power to shields. Korak, take the heavy weapons. Issa, keep scanning for vulnerabilities." Grothian twins synchronized their heavy pulse rifles, preparing for boarding parties. The human training had drilled one truth into them: adapt or die. Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching the holofeed. The enemy ships darted in and out of sensor range like angry hornets. The swarm moved with ruthless efficiency. "They're testing us," he muttered, probing for weaknesses. Suddenly the hull trembled violently. An explosive breach in the docking bay. "Boarders incoming," Leon yelled, rallying the team. In the darkened halls, the mixed species team met the enemy head-on. The insectoid attackers were vicious and relentless, their claws tearing through armor, their acid spitting through the air. But the cadets fought back harder, using tactics Marcus had drilled into them: unpredictable maneuvers, combined arms teamwork, and brutal close-quarters combat. Isaven's telepathic assaults disrupted the enemy hive mind, sowing confusion among the swarm. Korak's raw strength tore through ranks, while Leon coordinated their movements like a symphony of destruction. Hours stretched on. The team bled, but never broke. Between gunfire and screams, a new respect blossomed. No longer just alien or human, they were a unit. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he analyzed the enemy's tactics. "They're adapting, learning from our moves." "We must evolve faster," Leon said. Then came the moment Marcus had been waiting for, a chance to turn the tide. "Focus fire on that vessel," he pointed at the flagship on the holofeed. "If we take down their command ship, the swarm will falter." The team converged, pooling every weapon and every ounce of skill. A final, massive blast shook the station as the flagship exploded, cascading debris into the void. Silence fell. The swarm pulled back, retreating into the darkness. The station's alarms quieted. The team gathered in the central chamber, exhausted, battered, but victorious. Marcus looked around at their faces, some bruised, some glowing with triumph. "Today," he said quietly, "you learned what it means to fight as one, to overcome fear, distrust, and death itself." Lieutenant Leon smiled, eyes shining. "We're ready for whatever comes next." And Marcus knew, deep inside, that this was only the beginning. The galaxy's true war was still out there, but now humanity's legacy burned brighter than ever. The echoes of battle still hummed through Bastion Zero as the team regrouped, their bodies tired but their spirits unbroken. The swarm's retreat had bought them time, but Marcus knew it was only temporary. "What are we really fighting?" Leon asked quietly, eyes scanning the dim corridors. Marcus tapped his datapad. "That's what we're about to find out." In the command center, a classified transmission arrived, marked Galactic High Command, Urgent. Marcus activated the feed. A hologram flickered to life, a tall figure in elaborate armor surrounded by alien dignitaries. "Commander Webb, the Admiral intoned, voice grave. "We have intel from deep space recon teams. The swarm you faced is not a simple raiding party." The room fell silent. "Their leader is a newly discovered species, the Zarthul." A collective shudder ran through the cadets. The Zarthul were legend, a myth whispered across star systems. Monstrous beings rumored to be ancient predators, intelligent beyond comprehension, capable of not only physical destruction, but of corrupting entire worlds from within. Marcus leaned forward. "Show me." The hologram shifted, revealing grainy images from recon satellites. Massive bioships, alive and breathing, drifting through space. Inside, Zarthul warriors moved with eerie precision. Their technology blended biology and machinery in ways that defied science. Admiral's voice cut through. "They consume planets, not just for resources, but for genetic material. They evolve by absorbing DNA, and every conquest makes them stronger." Korak growled low. "We thought they were a swarm. They are a virus." Isaven's glowing eyes dimmed. "If they adapt that quickly, we are outmatched." Marcus stood, jaw set. "That's why this unit exists, to adapt faster, to fight smarter." He looked at each cadet. "The lesson they tried to teach you about killing humans, they've made the same mistake again, underestimating human adaptability, ingenuity, and will." Leon nodded. "We will find their weaknesses." Grothian twins exchanged a grim glance. "We will turn the predator into prey." The Admiral's final words echoed in the chamber. "Commander Webb, this fight is no longer about survival. It's about the fate of every sentient species in this galaxy." Outside Bastion Zero, the cold stars twinkled silently, but somewhere in the dark, the Zarthul awaited, hungry, ready. The air was electric with anticipation. Bastion Zero, once a symbol of cooperation and hope, now braced for its final test. The Zarthul fleet loomed on the horizon, a dark shadow blotting out stars. Their bioships pulsed with eerie life, ready to consume, to corrupt, to annihilate. Marcus stood at the command console, heart pounding but mind razor sharp. "This is it," he said, voice steady. Around him, the alien cadets, once rivals, now comrades, prepared weapons, synced their systems, and tightened their resolve. Leon leaned in. "We don't just fight to survive. We fight to prove the galaxy wrong about humanity." Isaven touched Marcus's arm lightly. "Together, we will prevail." The battle erupted like a supernova. Zarthul warriors swarmed the station's outer defenses. Plasma bolts streaked through the void, while inside, the corridors echoed with the clash of blades and roars of combat. Marcus and his team moved as one, combining alien strengths and human tactics in breathtaking synergy. "Deploy the adaptive drones," Marcus ordered. Korak launched a volley of kinetic grenades, tearing through the bioshielding of enemy combatants. Isaven's telepathic pulse fractured the hive mind's cohesion. Leon's precision fire took out key Zarthul leaders. Grothian twins moved like shadows, cutting down enemies with brutal efficiency. But the Zarthul fought back with terrifying ferocity. Their monstrous leader emerged, a towering hybrid of flesh and machine, dripping with corrosive energy. "Humans think they can adapt," it hissed, voice like grinding stone. "But they are weak." Marcus squared his shoulders. "Humans don't just adapt. We innovate." He unleashed a weapon prototype, a bioelectric pulse designed to disrupt the Zarthul's genetic link. The creature screamed as its armor cracked, its hive mind faltering. In the final moments, it was human ingenuity combined with alien courage that turned the tide. The Zarthul bioships destabilized and self-destructed, collapsing into stellar dust. Bastion Zero survived. Exhausted but victorious, Marcus addressed his team. "Today, you learned what I always knew. Humanity is not the weakest link. We are the spark that ignites hope." Leon smiled, eyes shining. "And together, we are unstoppable." The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just survival, but the birth of a new alliance. An alliance forged in fire, trust, and the unyielding spirit of humanity.